On top of a mountain, the cool breeze strikes a rustle in the leaves. The feeling, it consumes me. It floods my entire body. I must go. I knew the time had come. It flowed from within, and I couldn't stop it. A feeling so epic, so powerful, that it no longer gave me control. I can make anything sound epic. What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of album number 7, Mania by Fall Out Boy. Fall Out Boy are your former emo and pop punk overlords that dominated the quote-unquote scene throughout the 2000s and then went on a hiatus, not a breakup, a hiatus from really 2009 to 2013. They recorded an album in secret that was called Save Rock and Roll, came back in 2013, and to a lot of people's surprise, they came back stronger than ever in terms of commercial and fan success. People really liked that album and it grew on me with time. They then quickly followed that up with the January 2015 release American Beauty, American Psycho, which was much more of a poppy effort, but I would still say pop rock. A lot of great songwriting was there, and even if I didn't like every single song in terms of its overall soundscape, I could appreciate what they were doing there. It was a very catchy and effervescent release. Now with this new album, Mania, obviously Pete wrote out a very long post before the album was even written, I might add, back in, I believe it was April or May of 2017. Mania was supposed to come out in September of last year, and that of course didn't happen because the songs that they did have, they didn't believe in, so I understand why they delayed the release. They said that they wanted to perfect it and make something that they were proud of, so that was commendable. But did they? Did they do that with Mania? Did they take their time? Did they perfect it? Did they make a cohesive piece of work that really sticks with you? No. A resounding no. This album is just all over the place. They talk about getting caught in a riptide. That's what this feels like. It feels like you're in a riptide, you don't know where you're going, and you're just being spun in circles as this album absolutely spirals as it continues on. It might start off okay, that's when you're getting in the ocean, but then within 4 tracks, you're sucked up into this whirlwind and you don't know where you're going. And when you get out of it, finally at the end of the record, you're left saying, what just happened? Mania is certainly something, and in a way it does live up to its title because mania refers to maybe some sort of insanity, and I do feel that in a way when I listen to it. I won't say that it completely goes off the rails. I'm not going to try and exaggerate it to be something it's not. It's just a whirlwind of chaos. That's really the best way to look at this because they try out so many sounds within a 35-minute record and you just can't really pull something like this off. It plays more like a mixtape rather than an album, rather than one cohesive idea. And it seems like they intended for there to be an idea behind it. If you went in saying, oh, this plays like a mixtape, like something like Drake's More Life or something like that, then okay, I can look at it from that perspective. But even washing out all former notions of what Fall Out Boy might have once been, let's put that out of the window for a second. Let's just look at it as an album. How does it hold up? Well, still, not well. Even if I had never listened to this band before, I wouldn't be giving this the highest of praises. If this was just the new debut of the week on Alt Nation, for example, and I tuned in and heard something like Sunshine Riptide, I would think, what exactly is this band going for here? Because let's take a look at that song for a second. It features Burna Boy, which is a reggae artist, and they wanted more of a reggae islandy vibe on a few of these songs. I can definitely tell that with Hold Me Tight or Don't, and obviously Sunshine Riptide, which is one of the earliest existing songs for this record, Mania. I look to that one and I once again just see something where they wanted to fit in a lot of different ideas and sounds and they don't pull it off. The song starts off like it's trying to be almost like a little mumble rap or something like that, and that doesn't surprise me considering they hung out with Black Bear a lot, they toured with them, and the song as it goes on, it gets increasingly more catchy in a way, more poppy, but the verse from the reggae artist doesn't fit in whatsoever. It has this weird vibe, and as it sort of shifts gears and starts to add in more bass, it feels almost too bassy. We go most of the album without really getting that much bass from Pete Wentz, and then all of a sudden it's like he wants to bump it all over the place in the background of the chorus of Sunshine Riptide, which sounds, like I said, okay, catchy enough with Patrick Stump on the vocals there, especially towards the end of the song, but it doesn't really leave you with a satisfied feeling. It just leaves you a bit befuddled. There is so much repetition in the lyrical content of Mania, whereas before this band had a great knack for really just writing songs that you could dive into the lyrical content. You could dissect it, pull it apart. Sure, there's a line here or a line there that might have you thinking, what were they going for? What's the deeper meaning here? Especially moments like Bishop's Knife Trick. But most of this album, it's just a lot of repetition, and it feels like them trying desperately to stay relevant with these very pop choruses that don't exactly work in a pop context. In fact, I can't really see most of these songs being hits whatsoever, even at alternative radio. Sure, there's a couple, and we'll talk about those, but for the most part, in the deep cuts that are here, they just sound weird. Like they're trying to be something, but they don't exactly know what that is. For example of what I'm talking about with the repetition and the cop-out choruses and lyrics, let's look to moments like Church, because Church definitely has a phrase that gets repeated a whole lot. If you were Church, I'd get on my knees, and get on my knees is said at least a dozen times. It's just beat into the ground, because I'll say this, with Church, okay, maybe a cool idea, maybe you're relating religion to this relationship and showing your devotion, getting on your knees like you're praying, except you're getting on your knees because you would maybe do anything for this person, except you take that idea and you just say it over and over and over again. It's like when someone has to repeat the joke and it wasn't really funny to begin with or that clever, but the person just keeps saying it like, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? And I'm like, yes, Pete Wentz, I got it. You see, the thing with Church is that I actually like the verses on that song, but that presents yet again another problem. It's like every time I have a compliment for one of the songs, there's a detractor to it. Like I said, the lyrical content on Church, a big factor for me is to not liking the entire song. I think that Church has some really solid verses to it. It's catchy, and I feel like I've come to like at least the kind of backing choir on this track. It gives it that sense of epicness. I don't think that it's as epic as they want it to be, but still, at least in terms of the song on Mania, the instrumental is definitely a lot better and maybe a little bit more inventive. But then we see other cuts here that just feel kind of like the same. You see something like Young and Menace, which obviously has that super big drop that is just out of nowhere. It was one of the worst songs of last year in my opinion, and they switched up the track list order here. It was originally supposed to kick off the album, but like last minute they changed it and made it track number 9. They couldn't even get that right. It would have made sense for it to open up with "We've gone way too fast for way too long" and that kind of blurry intro. But no, they put it at track number 9, and as a result, the final track, Bishop's Knife Trick, ends up feeling like an afterthought. Getting back on track with what I was saying about the repetitiveness though, you obviously have that in Young and Menace. Sunshine Riptide repeats that phrase over and over again, caught in the sunshine riptide. It's just kind of the up and down, the ebb and the flow, and you really get to know the DNA of this album very, very quickly. And then you look to something like Champion, and that might just be the most repetitive one here. I can do anything. If I can live through this, I can do anything. I mean, just look at the lyrics on Genius. The whole last part of the song that's all stacked up there, it's literally the same thing over and over again. Sure, it's sung a bit differently, and I can appreciate that Patrick Stump is really letting it go on those final notes of the song, and he does get a little bit more soulful on this record, a la Folie à Deux, but for the most part, it just doesn't save it. Let's talk about the opening part of this record, because the opening act is definitely much stronger. The first 4 songs on this album I actually like, but like I said, there's still reasons as to why I don't fully love them and why I might like them in the context of this record, but in terms of their discography and what they've done in the past, they don't even hold a torch to it. They don't even hold a little birthday candle to it. It's like wavering about to blow out at any time because it doesn't have much of a backbone. But I can sense catchy enough, well-done pop rock songs, and I'm not going to completely slam these because I absolutely do like some of them. It's just the fact that I don't feel like they stand nearly as tall as even their last record, American Beauty, American Psycho. I would even say that for the most part, except for a couple of songs, even like the worst songs on American Beauty, the best songs on here rival those. So I definitely do not feel like it's a step up in any way. But the opening section here, it kicks off with Stay Frosty Royal Milk Tea. Cool and interesting name. Okay, what's going on here? We've got some obvious pop culture references throughout this song, and obviously the album in general. We have references to a couple of films like Castaway, and then The Addams Family, even Moonrise Kingdom, a film that I really like, and I do like the nod there. So cool, I can appreciate that. But Stay Frosty Royal Milk Tea, it has this very abrasive cutting sound, almost like a processed guitar, but still very loud and noisy. I like to see Joe Troman in the action actually doing something and showing his skill, because let's be honest, for the past couple of records, Joe Troman, since really My Songs Light 'Em Up, he's been stuck on the same guitar tone. He plays it in like the background of every chorus, and it's just this noise that you automatically know. It's in My Songs, Centuries, lots of songs here like even Hold Me Tight or Don't, a song that I like, but still, it's just very monotone, not really wavering that much, it's just there in the background. Stay Frosty has a gripping instrumental. I love the guitars on this track, even the drums and the pulsating angsty vibe that I get from it. Stump just sounds like he's about to boil over. He needs to get this message out there. But there's also, at the same time, unfortunately, I have to stamp an asterisk on again because we have some lyrics that just get questionable. I mean, do I really want to be singing at the top of my lungs, "Are you smelling that shit? Are you smelling that shit?" He says that several times here, and not just several, I would say it's actually 8 times because I counted. 8 times that he says, "Are you smelling that shit?" And it's just so awkward because it doesn't fit with the rest of the lyrics whatsoever. And there's many of these awkward lyrical moments scattered all throughout the album where they just harp on one weird thing. It's like, okay, maybe the first time, maybe like a one-liner, like "I'll start wearing black when they make a darker color," which was the reference to the Addams Family movie. But they keep saying it, and it's just like I said before, it's like beating the dead horse with some sort of joke that I got it the first time you said it, but you're just gonna keep saying it, okay. It's just like them. I feel like trying to kind of ride the lines of what hip-hop is doing with just the rawness and the energy and the weirdness, and they throw in a lot of those lines that try to go in that direction. They make a lot of drug references actually on this album, which I found weird. They're not like subtle like they were in the past. It's just several nods all throughout to pills, to taking hits and that sort of thing, which at times, I admit, it actually fits with the song and I like it, but still, it just seems like a little bit out there. So that definitely threw off the vibe of Stay Frosty. Otherwise, that might be my favorite song on the album. Hold Me Tight or Don't actually has a nice tropical vibe to it. It reminds me of IDGAF by Dua Lipa, the same similar little backing thing that's going in the chorus of that track. I'm hearing in like the marimba synth stylings of this track, just the keys here and the way that they're stylized. It's not a complaint really, it's just something that I noticed. Hold Me Tight or Don't is very, very catchy. This absolutely does have the potential to cross over, especially with Dua Lipa being popular right now. It's something that I noticed. It's not so much a huge tropical flair, but a little bit of that reggae, Latin flair there, and I can really appreciate that. I actually looked at the music video as well. Very cool, very well done. I appreciate the nods to the culture there, and this track is really just super catchy. It's a lot of fun. I'm not huge on the na-na-na-na-na, but other than that, I like the song a whole lot. It's one of the best ones here. Might just be my favorite other than Wilson, aka Expensive Mistakes. That one right there is an absolute jam. That one has a lot of catchiness that does remind me of some of the best qualities of their last record, American Beauty, American Psycho, but mixed with a little bit of a new creative flair as well. I can really dig and appreciate Patrick's key change leading up to the post-chorus and throughout the post-chorus. It's very unique to this album. It mixes things up a bit from getting stale and predictable, and then he he launches into that chorus, I hope the roof flies off this place, and it's just really captivating. You get sucked into the feel of the song, that's for sure. I really can't stand the fact that they released 5 damn songs before this album came out, and they played a 6th one live, I believe. So 6 out of 10 songs technically being out in the world before the album even drops, it just kind of spoils the album. But I did listen to 3. I normally only do 2, but I was so curious. Last of the Real Ones, that's the song that I'm going to briefly talk about now. This one I actually did do a track review for, and I will say, I've stayed steady in my liking of the song. I still agree with my review that I did there. Maybe I even like it perhaps a bit more. This is once again one of the more traditionally catchy, uplifting, kind of just Fall Out Boy-centric type songs. It sounds more like a natural evolution of their sound rather than some of the random fuckery that they got away with on some of these other tracks. I do need to get critical again for a second because I want to talk about Heaven's Gate. This one really stands out on Mania and not in a good way. In fact, the way it's juxtaposed in the track listing, it just doesn't really make sense. It's stuck in between Church, which I guess Heaven's Gate right after Church kind of makes sense, and Champion, but the vibes of those songs are all way different. And then you've got Heaven's Gate, which sounds like it's destined to be played at an 80s themed prom, or maybe some sort of like throwback formal dance or something like that. And it's weird. It's like sounding like a mixture of a George Michael tune, and then it reminds me a lot of Can't Help Falling in Love, which a lot of you know 21 Pilots covered it, but it was originally an Elvis Presley tune. That's a weird vibe for me to be getting from a track on Fall Out Boy's Mania, and I don't really mind the verses all that much. It's okay. It's a little too familiar, but then we get to the chorus, and the way that Patrick just sings here, it is very passionate, but the words that he's saying, it just seems very, very cheesy. I mean, the way that he keeps saying, "Give me a boost," and boost is such a weird word. It's almost like a keyword, and you're like, all right, why am I honing in on this so much? It just doesn't fit. It's like clunky. That leaves only the last song to talk about, which is the final song on the album, of course, Bishop's Knife Trick. This one is, like I said, kind of an afterthought, unfortunately, because after getting out of Young and Menace, it's just such a jarring tune that whatever comes after it, you're maybe expecting something a little bit more upbeat, but this one is a bit more reflective, one of the most human songs on the record, I would say, and I like it overall. There's a few elements that don't really add up, and I will say that I don't like the higher pitches, the last, that whole thing that's going on, but then that final part of the song really puts all the pieces together there for me. It's something where you're like, okay, where is this song headed? And they actually give you direction. Most of this album feels directionless, but here we actually have the guiding light. And I feel like the bridge is probably the strongest on the entire album. It actually gives us a summarization of what's going on in the track, and then Patrick changes his vocal keys here, and instead of the last just being the higher pitches, he comes in and brings it down on that final moment, and it seems like we're coming back down to earth after just a weird exploration in space. That's all I can say for Mania. It's like my girlfriend Infinity on Hannah said, it's like we have a bunch of puzzle pieces that is the album Mania, and they're not actually all there. We have no clues as to how to put it together, and you're sitting there trying to shuffle it all together, and they're all trying to come together, but the pieces weren't meant to fit. That kind of sums up Mania, and that's unfortunate. If you can get around that, the fact that it doesn't really have much cohesion and it just kind of jumps around wildly, then you're probably going to be okay with it. I myself readily admit that there's some catchy songs on here. A bit of a clunker in terms of lyrical content. Sometimes there's just some oddballs that stand out, but overall, there's some worthwhile songs. It's just very disappointing as a whole to see what has happened to Fall Out Boy over time. They've turned into a shell of their former selves, and I know that they have so much talent, it's just that they're not really using it. I do enjoy the deeper content on like Bishop's Knife Trick, where he kind of talks about the blues, maybe a reference to pills that Pete overdosed on back in the day, like this is the last time, so let's see how deep down we can go and dive into this weird trip that I'm having. But then you look to some of these others like Champion that are so ambiguous and so like just lack of any kind of real direction that it could be about anything, and it's just constantly riding the line on both sides of the fence. What do you guys think? I know this is going to be a divisive review and record, but it's all just my opinion. Keep that in mind, and obviously understand that just because you're a fan of someone, you don't have to love everything that they do. Other than that, it's a 2.5 out of 5 from me. That's my thoughts on Mania, guys. Be sure to sound off down below, and please drop a like on this video. Help me get this one to 1,000 likes, and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. If you're able to support what I do on this channel, and of course beyond ARTV as well, please support me on Patreon. It's this annotation in the corner of the screen. If you would like to see another Fall Out Boy review, right over here, or another recent video I did on the channel right over here. All of my social media can be found linked in the description down below, and other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.